Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining this month's, what is this, June? It's just another Wednesday, right?
Time is a fabulous construct.
Yeah, pretty much, Jen. This is the June Windows Insider Webcast. Thank you all for being here. We are glad you have joined us. I'll do a quick round for everybody on the screen. I am your very gracious and thankful that you are here. I am your host, Jason Howard. PM on the Windows Insider engineering team. The next square up in the middle, that is Amanda Langowski. She is the PM lead and chief awesomeness person of the Windows Insider program. Next over is Jen Gentleman, the only gentleman at Microsoft. See, I did it for you, Jen.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And the keep going clockwise bottom right, that is Eddie Leonard. He is another awesome member of the team, DJ Eddie L on Twitter. Oh, I gotta go back and do everybody's things. Like your Jen MSFT on Twitter. Amanda, what is your Twitter handle, Amanda? Is it Amanda_Lango or Amanda Lango all one?
I think so, yeah.
It's Amanda_Lango.
Okay. In the middle, familiar face if you have been attending these webcasts for a while. Josh, is this your second or your third appearance?
I think it's my third. I think it's my third.
Okay. Well, that's Josh Salyers. He is a PM over in the Windows Insider Engineering Fundamentals. Like, I don't even know what to call you anymore. Like, we just assume that you're like part of the team because you do all the cool stuff that insiders see. He's one of the
flighting team.
Yeah, so he's on the flighting team, right? So he's responsible for like when you go to settings and you're adjusting your insider settings and all that. He is on the team that owns that chunk of work. Is what Josh is responsible for, amongst other things. He has also been one of the major architects of this whole channels thing, which is the biggest topic we'll be covering today. So thank you for being here. Thank you for making the time. And then, of course, in the bottom left of your screen, there is Brandon LeBlanc, which is at Brandon LeBlanc on Twitter. I think everybody who's ever attended any webcast or has been any time on Twitter talking about anything related to Microsoft, you probably stumbled across him at one point in time or another.
I'm not allowed to not be at a webcast. Like Jason is very aggressive at making sure that I am at the webcast, so this is like...
It's pretty much...
We're going to get a cardboard cutout for you so you can have more cycles. We're just going to put it up in the corner. We're kind of hidden behind Jason to be nice and creepy. Yeah, exactly.
It's pretty much a requirement. All right, so hold on. I'm making sure I haven't aggressively muted anything. Apparently I did. So let me tell you real quick. Yes, there is some echo. So I will tell you, for everybody who's tuning in, I have to do some audio wrangling today. For each of the webcasts we've done in this remote fashion so far, we haven't done any presentations, right? It's always just been, your Hollywood squares here of all of us, talking and doing conversation and responding to the chat. So with the PowerPoint thing and the way XSplit works and the way that we're piping in everybody's audio and video stream so that you can see all of our, smiling faces as we're, on the webcast today, I'm having to do a lot of stuff that I haven't had to do before. So I apologize. I realize it's probably not going to go perfect. So I ask you to bear with me. Please be gentle. I will do my best to mitigate some of the strangeness that you will probably hear. But I am, Hotcake says we have a DJ, which is Eddie, right? So I'm going to do my best. I won't promise that it's going to be perfect, but I will put my full effort into this and try to make it the best experience possible. We learn a little bit every time we do this, so if you want to yell at anybody, come yell at me. It's my fault. I will happily take the blame. Okay, so let me jump ahead and address a couple questions that have popped up in the chat. They popped up on Twitter. They've popped up pretty much everywhere, and that is relating to the announcement from Mixer yesterday. I'm just going to go ahead and tackle this because I know people want to know. Yes, as was just mentioned in the chat, the Mixer platform is shutting down. I don't know the specific date. I think it's in July at some point. I think it's like a month from now. Brandon, do you know the date?
What is the 22nd?
22nd, okay.
Sorry, I missed that. For what?
The date that Mixer is shutting down.
Oh, yeah, July 22nd. We have 1 month from 1 month from yesterday.
So that's going to be fun. And so the question has come up.
I'm taking it.
What's that? That's funny. Hey, so I think, you know what? It's interesting. I need to ask the chat. So anybody in chat, can you still hear Brandon and Jen talking right now? Can't hear Brandon. Okay. That's what I figured was going to happen. Okay. I was trying something about the echo. It didn't work. Okay. I have fixed it. Don't worry. We're good to go. All right.
Can I speak now?
Yeah, you can speak. I was trying something. It didn't work. Okay.
Questionable.
Okay. Yes, 8 million no's. And so hopefully it's all back. There's the lag between when I do something and when everybody's going to see it. Yeah, I know. I get it. All right, I tried, right, Suaga? So now that everybody can hear again. It should be back now. I have to type this in chat. Should be. And I'm probably typing really loud. Okay, so anyway. So yes.
This typing it suits.
Yeah, exactly. This will be obviously the last webcast that we will be doing on the Mixer platform. So to all the folks who have asked, where are we going next? Do we have a landing spot? Have we made that decision? So on and so forth. The answer is no. So there's a couple things that I'll just kind of talk about now. We were planning to do a webcast for July. We had tentatively picked a date. Given this change and some of the planning that we need to do, it doesn't necessarily mean we won't do it, but we may actually take July off and pick back up in August so we have time to transition and I have time to do all the technical work that I need to do to get set up on the platform properly. You're like, oh, hey, it's got a month. Why don't you have time to do it? Because, well, this is a piece of my job, but there's still a ton of other stuff to do too. So it's TBD. We still plan on doing webcasts. We're not just like kicking them into the ether. So if we don't do one in July, bear with us. We'll have one in August. Am I going to rename the Beam Machine Mixer Machine? Yeah, it'll probably get renamed, but I don't know. That's not the most important thing I'm working on right now, Rich. Bear with me here. So anyway, no, I don't know where we're going yet. We have not finished having those discussions. We will figure this out. We will land somewhere. And we will make some announcements when we're ready to do that. So, yeah. I know.
Yeah, it's to the point, like, whatever format that we do pick, we'll make sure that there's an interactive element. You know what I mean? I think that's some of the things are popping up in chat. We definitely want to make sure this is a good, whatever format we pick, we can have.
Yep.
A good Q&A and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard everything. Some people want us to go to Facebook. Some people don't want us to go to Facebook. Some people would love it if we jump to Twitch. Some people said go to YouTube. Like, there are, there's the question of, is it going to be on Teams, right? With as many changes as the Teams platform has implemented since this whole work from home thing has started, right? There is a lot that has changed on the platform. And if you rewind, even to like January 1st of this year, the Teams platform may not have necessarily been the right place for us to do this type of interaction. With a bunch of the changes that have come in since then, I need to reevaluate that. And Teams, with those changes, may actually be a good landing place for us. And it's interesting because since we're not, the typical streamer like you would see on, Mixer or on Twitch, right? We don't have, daily or, multiple times a week type broadcasts and whatnot. It's just about letting you all know exactly where we're going to be broadcasting from, and then making sure you're aware of that change, and then just rolling with it from there. And then, yeah, like there's some, comments in the chat right now if I don't have a Facebook account and things like that. I know there's folks out there who, prefer not to use the platform. There are countries where some of the insiders can't actually access the platform, right? And those are things we're all taking into consideration. We have some decisions to make. So, again, I don't have a concrete answer for you, but we will get that decision made. We will announce whatever we come to from a conclusion perspective, and we'll get things back on track. So hopefully that answers it. I'll touch on it again at the end of the webcast for anybody who joins later, but there you go. All right, so on to the show, right? I introduced Josh earlier. The bottom center square down there, I'm pointing at my own monitor, which is kind of funny because it just looks like I'm randomly pointing to my desk here. So give me a moment. I'm going to pull up the PowerPoint, and this is where the audio gymnastics start. If there is no audio, trust me, I'm watching the chat over here. So if there's no audio, give me a moment. I promise you I will get it, pulled up, and you will be able to hear people and whatnot. It may just take a second. So hold tight while I get this going. Add source, window capture, PowerPoint presentation. I got to put the presentation in presenter mode. It's like there's like this whole series of things that I have to do, which is super fun. Swap views, okay. Just a moment more, I'm almost there. Nope, that's not the right one. Hey, there we go. Okay.
Blurry my camera is everybody else's.
You know when you watch a rom-com and there's like that romanticized, everything's...
Josh, you look like you're in a steam room.
With the sunblock, and I kind of feel like it.
Oh my goodness. All right, so normally, I will say one more thing before we switch over. Normally, when we're in presentation mode, I try to have like the webcam down in the corner so you can still see us kind of joking and chatting with one another. I don't think that's going to happen this go around. So while we're in presentation mode, you'll just see the PowerPoint or whatnot. But we'll still be addressing questions that you'll have in chat and things of that nature. It's something new that I have to work out in this setup. So if the audio cuts out when I switch over to presentation mode so you can see the PowerPoint, say so in chat, right? I will respond to it and work through it as quickly as possible, I promise. All right, fingers crossed. Here we go. And I know the audio just...
stuff, and there's like this beach ball.
I know, I mean...
I just want to talk about channels.
Okay, so let me check. So with the chat, everybody in chat, can you hear anything besides just me? Because there's other people actually chuckling in the background.
Hello.
Yeah, did everybody hear Jen just say hello? Fingers crossed. Pretty please work. I'm begging, please work. Everybody's heard. Yes, no, yes, no, yes. No. So I'm getting mixed responses.
Messing with you. Let's just go ahead and talk about it.
So Josh, let her rip. And just tell me when you need me to click slides.
Yeah, I'm watching the stream. I know there's a delay, but I'll try and ask you to switch slides. Yeah, so one of the big things we're here to discuss today is the move to channels and what we're doing for managing flighting. I'll talk a little bit about how we kind of got to this place where we decided that we needed a change, what this change really means for insiders, and what this change kind of helps us achieve as Microsoft and as the insider program and flighting program has evolved over the years. So you can go to the next slide, Jason.
Okay, let me jump over and
so
there we go.
I think the main thing I want to really talk about for why we got to this point is that we're really transitioning from the ring model to this channel model to start pivoting more on the quality of what we're sending the insiders. For those who've been part of the program since its inception, and even those who are new, are usually pretty familiar with the ring model we've had over the years and how we try to use it. We try to send some build that we're working on too fast at a frequent cadence, and then once we do some validation on that and everything looks good, we try to get it out to insiders who are sitting in the slow ring and then out to release preview. Anyone who's been around knows that we, hit periods of drought and stuff like that. And so really took a step back at like, is frequency really the right thing to be pivoting on here? And started focusing more on the quality of the experiences that we're giving to everybody in the Insider program. You can go to the next slide. And this just kind of goes a little bit more depth about all the problems, as we started looking at, hey, we're doing we had this whole skip fast. Over the last year, we started seeing builds on top of builds, like 19H2 development happening in parallel of 20H1. And just the way the OS is worked on nowadays is a lot different than it was 4 or 5 years ago when we first stood up the Insider program. And so that really got us thinking about having this sort of like single track fast through release preview where we try to push builds out really wasn't meeting the needs for the business. And it was also creating a lot of confusion in the Insider population for like, where should I really be? What am I supposed to be getting right now? It was just it just wasn't the right solution for where we are right now in Windows. Another big thing that we noticed over the years is, like I mentioned, is this period of drought that always seemed to happen in the outermost rings. While the Insider slow ring is our like biggest, fastest growing audience, it's also the one that we had a hard time really achieving our goals and making sure that there's always some new, fresh content available to insiders who are sitting there, especially early in a development cycle. Just super rough to be sitting in that ring and not get anything. It just doesn't feel right for you, and it doesn't feel right for us as well.
Yeah, I mean,
and then like I mentioned, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say real quick, like I think it was, what was it? And I'm trying to reach back into the memory banks. What was it, like RS5? I think it's even weird going back to the RS build strings. I think it was 5 months, maybe 6 months that we
maybe
went
7
months that we went without having a build that went to slow. And the folks in slow were like, do you still love us? Do you care about this ring? And we're like, yes, we're really trying to get you a build.
Yeah. And I think the folks on the stream here can kind of see both sides of that too, right? Being familiar with what we do, I think you can understand that not only does that suck for the insiders to feel like they're not valued, to feel like they're not getting things, and do we really care, but it also really sucks for us we're trying to actually make Windows better and take your feedback and see any bugs that you file and really help shape the direction that Windows is being made and the features are being worked on. Mm-hmm. To just be not giving like a large population of people anything and to not be getting any feedback on that is super detrimental to what the whole point of all of this was or is.
Yeah.
And then the last thing, I kind of touched on this in the last slide, but I think that just the terms fast and slow are extremely outdated in the new model of the way we work on the OS. I don't think we've liked the terms for some time now, actually. I think what the original intent is to really have a focus on quality, but we got to this point where we were focused more on cadence and delivering things at a certain frequency. And so we really wanted to shift away from that, really talk about the quality that an insider can expect when they opt in. And based on that, we can make sure that we're always giving each channel something based on that sort of quality bar and get away from this cadence conversation. So, and you can go to the next slide. So the big reveal, the thing that was in the blog post, the thing that we've been tiptoeing around here is that we're introducing insider channels. And I've seen in the chat, I have the chat up on my my gaming rig here, but I can see some people mentioning, hey, this seems to align with what Office does and things like that, and we'll touch on that a bit later. But yeah, if you're familiar with some of the other insider programs at Microsoft, this isn't going to be a super alarming change to you. The text isn't super clear that Jason's presenting, but
do I need to make it bigger? I can try.
No, it's not. I don't know if it's a size thing or it doesn't. I think folks can squint and sort of see.
Okay.
But yeah, really, what we're talking about doing here is adding, or we're moving all the rings over to 3 distinct channels. This isn't just a naming change. I'll kind of go through how we're going to utilize each of these channels a little bit more. But the main thing I want to get across here is that you can kind of think about this mapping in relationship to the old rings, where fast and skip ahead, the kind of experience and cadence you got there, we want to make sure that aligns as best as possible to the dev channel. Insider slow aligns as best as possible to beta, and surprise, release preview aligns to release preview.
It's funny how that name, right? It just stuck.
Yeah. And well, kind of what I wanted to do for this audience is jump into each channel, talk a bit about what expectations you as an insider can have for each channel, the kind of content we plan on seeing there, any sort of gotchas, and then we'll leave some time at the end for questions. So keep your questions in mind or put them in chat, and we'll make sure that we get to those.
Yep.
So you can get to the next slide, and we'll talk about the dev channel.
There we go.
So like you saw in that the previous diagram there, and like I mentioned, the dev channel really is kind of a direct mapping to folks who are in skip ahead and fast days. So it's our highly technical users, folks that really understand that there may be some rough edges and instability in these builds, things that could block key activities. We maybe need to send out some more of our, I guess, technical workarounds, and you're comfortable using those. It's going to be the builds that contain the latest work in progress from our engineers. And I really think that the key thing I want to get across today is that the work that's happening in the dev channel isn't matched to any specific Windows 10 release. So you can think of it as we as engineers are working on new things, new ideas, trying stuff out. We have a good idea of what we want to accomplish, but maybe not quite sure how to get that done or achieve those goals. So we want some place where we can kind of work on things and get it out to insiders and get feedback and see how that stuff is going. But it's not any specific named release. You can't really say, oh, this is the next blank set of features or anything like that. It's just sort of a place where we can develop the product and see how it goes. Mm-hmm. The things that are worked there will eventually, when they're ready, be delivered as a full, as part of a full OS update or some sort of servicing release in the future. Things that are worked there might also just fall into the nether, and we may decide that it was an effort not worth pursuing after we got feedback from insiders and things like that. So that's kind of how to think about the dev channel. Is it's really just our work in progress that's not tied to any sort of specific release. And I already mentioned, anyone who was in skip ahead or fast over the years, there's definitely occasions where we have to send out some kooky run a script workaround or stuff like that. I think I know we've gotten a lot better over the years, but no promises that everything's going to be 100%.
That's funny.
So let's talk a little bit about the beta channel. And you can go to the next slide. So, like I mentioned, the dev channel being sort of this place where engineers can work on their latest stuff in progress code and all that sort of stuff. Beta is when we start actually tying things to a specific upcoming release. So you can think of it as, we iterate and work in the dev channel. We have a bunch of different features that we think will end up in some future release. And then at some point in time, we have a good idea of, okay, this group of things, that is what we want to actually go ahead and ship in the next release. So we're going to start sending that kind of content to the beta channel. So this is ideal for anyone that wants to see the set of features that are going to be in the next release early, so early adopters. It's also good for any IT pros that want to check these features out, because they may impact something that you do at your business or in your ecosystem or something like that. And we also want to make sure that any devices that are in the beta channel are kept up to date with sort of security. We're not leaving any of these devices in a vulnerable state. So making sure that they get reliable updates that we as Microsoft validate. I think the other thing, and maybe it's missing from the slide here, is now that we have that set of features that we feel like, or that we want to tie to a specific release, I think that this is where we're really, really going to want to hone in on like fit and finish, making sure that those experiences are super polished, and really paying attention to insider feedback on that kind of stuff. Design elements, bugs that would prevent us from actually releasing that feature. We're not in this state anymore of like an engineer can kind of get away with it because it's like, well, it's the dev channel and we've said there's going to be bugs and that sort of stuff. Like, we're in beta now. We're trying to stabilize this release, and we're trying to make sure that it's going to be the best feature, best experience that we can possibly build. And, obviously all of you as insiders really help us achieve that. And finally, we have the release preview channel, and you can slide ahead.
Got it.
Nothing is really changing for the release preview channel in terms of who we intend this to. We've always intended this audience to really be a place to get the upcoming release prior to being released to the world. I will say that what prior means has changed over the years, from just a little bit before we released to a couple months before we released, and we kind of went back and forth on that depending on the actual shipping schedule and all that sort of stuff. But this is a really great place for any insider that wants to see those things ahead of time, and also for especially for our IT community to really get their hands on what's going to get shipped out to the world, and make sure that they can do broad-scale deployments and testing, and make sure that everything's working, and give us feedback if they find anything that is preventing that from happening. The other thing that'll happen in the preview channel is we send out monthly updates to sort of the retail GA world, those folks who haven't opted into flighting, and they're just getting regular updates. There's things that go to them that also are feature changes as well, not just sort of quality KB sort of stuff. And we've always kind of tried to preview that stuff in the release preview channel and make sure that it's ready to go out to the retail world. Yeah, so I think that's a good high-level overview and a good way to kind of think about how we plan on utilizing each individual channel. So hop to the next slide, and we'll talk a little bit about what exactly is changing, some of the gotchas, what's not changing, things like that. So I think the biggest thing is we are still testing internally. Flights will still be sent to folks on on our team, on the development engineering teams across the company, no matter what channel you have enrolled in as an insider, there will be validation and testing and some quality bar we make sure we hit before we send things out publicly. For those that have been in some of the talks I've done previously for Webcast, you might be familiar with, flight operations and the daily things. A lot of folks on this call sit and do and look at measures and data and make sure that we're good enough to send you something. All of that is still going to continue as it has over the years. And we'll still be making sure that we're not sending anything egregiously bad out to anybody. And then a couple of kind of gotchas or just other key points to make about the channels. So since the dev channel will always be getting the earliest platform changes that are not tied to any specific release, that means they won't be getting, anyone in that audience won't be getting a final build. So that's just something to keep in mind, that if your device is enrolled in dev channel, like, you're just always on the earliest thing. Start thinking about the line between channels being more related to development cycles and quality, and less focused on cadence and us trying to carry a single product all the way to the finish line through each ring as it is today.
Yeah.
Sorry, was someone trying to?
No, I was just gonna say, like, one of the things that is interesting, right? If you look back historically and I'm gonna catch a bunch of flack in chat for saying this. I'm ready for it. I'm just using it as an example. For those of folks that are going to be in the dev channel, right? Given that those builds aren't tied to a specific release, right? You may be seeing code that may not ever make it into a build, right? So yeah. Just the same as, and here we go. This is where the fury is going to come. Just as sets showed up in 2 different sets of preview builds, but did not make final product cut, right? I will say you need to be prepared for something like that to possibly happen again in the future. I'm not saying it's going to. I'm not predicting anything. I'm saying be prepared for that possibility because it could happen. Yeah, that's it. That's all I wanted to say.
Or it could happen that way. It could just happen that maybe it's not a feature, just isn't ready for this release as we sort of snap it, I guess. But it gets to a point where it's ready for the next release. It's going to be, if you're sitting in the dev channel, it's going to be hard for anyone to say, like, oh, this is the new. So I think you're spot on. I think, like, we'll have a general idea. It'll be, fairly clear what's going to be in or out or not. But it does give us as sort of the engineers, the freedom to sort of say that, like, this is the set of stuff that's ready. And yeah, you're right. Some things may not make the cut or may not be ready, or yeah.
Yeah. So I if I'm jumping ahead because I don't know, I don't remember what's on the upcoming slides. So hopefully there's nothing super crazy. There's a question that showed up ahead of time, back when channels was announced. Like I say that like it was so long ago, but that it was interesting for folks, and I think really it's a bit of a change. Given that we're not in the rings / release cycle / time-based cadence any longer. So I think it's something that we should, kind of dig into for just a minute. So previously, when you were on the fast ring and it was tied to a specific release cycle, we would get to the end of that release cycle and say, hey, if you're on the fast ring, be prepared. And if you want to make changes to your insider settings, do that now. Because in a week, 2 weeks, whatever the time frame was, we would be jumping you from one, development cycle to the next development cycle. And so if a user wanted to say, hey, fast wasn't exactly what I wanted, maybe I should be in slow, or, maybe, I want to go to release preview, whatever the case may be, users would use that opportunity to switch rings and then not jump to the next development cycle. Now, with the way that the dev channel works, that doesn't exist any longer. There is no quote unquote, we used to call it, hopping off the train, I think is what Brandon used to call it. It's what I used to call it. There is no There's no station that the train stops at before going off to the next destination. The train is constantly moving. So if you are on dev and you want to opt out of dev, you have to use media and, flash your machine and then switch out that way.
Yeah, I think to kind of add to that, like the way I think about it is, we're working on a bunch of stuff in the dev channel, and at some point in time, we snap that, give it a release name, and we say, okay, start sending that to the beta channel so we can get it ready to go. At the same time that's happening, the dev channel is just still going ahead. Like, cool, that's awesome. You guys go do the thing, and you get that ready for release. Like, we've got the next set of features, or even like we mentioned, like things that didn't get chosen for that release. Maybe they still need work done and sort of gotten to that point where we can actually feel comfortable shipping that feature. Like, we're still working full bore on those features, adding new things, removing things, all that sort of stuff. So dev channel is just completely iterative. I don't know if the example of like a crane machine is good, of like we can go in and pick the features that we think are good and move them into a release and put them in the beta channel, but dev channel just keeps marching forward.
Awesome.
And then, where did I stop? Okay, beta channel. Any sort of gotchas or weird stuff about the beta channels? I think this is kind of just the stuff I've already covered. When we go ahead and sort of declare something as a release and give it a name, that's when we start sending that content to the beta channel. So you're not going to get updated experiences early in kind of the development cycle of a new feature set or something like that. Like the things that are worked on in dev don't even have a release name yet. But we want to use that beta channel to really refine the experiences, to do fit and finish, polish everything, do bug fixes, make sure we've got everything in a great place where we can go ahead and stamp it and say this is good enough for the world to see. The release preview channel, I also touched on this as well, but you'll be able to seek the major releases early, as well as the monthly quality updates that are delivered via LCU, via servicing, the monthly servicing updates that we send out. And then the wonderful caveat that always, I say maybe for insiders, this is like a cool thing. For engineers, it's one of those like, oh, come on. So there's a good chance we'll be expanding, creating new channels in the future. If you look at, it sounds like a lot of people on the in chat are familiar with a lot of the other insider programs we do at Microsoft. Office has more channels than these three, so we're always looking at like where do we need to fill gaps and what do we need. So we're open to expanding this model. I will say, just to give chat, I feel like this is an interesting thing for some people on the call. From an engineering perspective, the old ring model was not as... This sort of bullet point in the old ring model was a very scary thing. Like, adding a new ring was a costly experiment, I guess. When we added, anyone that remembers when we added release preview, I worked on that, and it took a lot longer than it should have. Adding new channels should be relatively quick, in comparison. So it's not just a name change. We did a lot of re-engineering and re-architecting, and a lot of teams were involved across the company to do this switch over to channels and get us to a place where we can actually have a flexible program that is useful both for insiders and for the engineering teams involved.
Yeah, and to touch on kind of a historical thing that I know that some insiders were frustrated with was when skip ahead was, an active part of how we were doing development. There was a cap on skip ahead, and even though it was a ring that, users could select in their settings, on the view that they had within the OS, from an architectural perspective, it wasn't quite the same as fast, slow, and release preview.
Yeah, Yeah, that was the way skip ahead does. It just to my point. Like to add skip ahead into the system was a bit of a. It was just we got the job done. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, it did what it was. I like the chuckles, right? It did what it was supposed to do, but it makes me have flashbacks to the movie The Matrix, right? Where it's like, this is the ugliest hack I think I've ever done, right? It's just like, well, right. It technically works, but it might not be the prettiest thing we've ever done.
Yeah. Cool. So let's talk about what y'all are gonna see when this happens. So you can go to the next slide. So we covered this at the beginning of the call, that there is this mapping. You can kind of squint and can kind of look at the rings as they are today as channels. I didn't know that this slide reveals itself. If you can make it reveal itself.
Oh, okay. The click, sorry.
Did you add a beautiful animation?
It's not even beautiful. It just snaps up on the screen. There you go.
Okay. So what we have gone ahead and done on our end is we will automatically do this mapping for you and move devices from the existing rings over to the channels with magic. So if your device is in fast today, it'll be moved into the dev channel, slow, beta channel, release preview. You can still kind of change your channel before we actually send some content there and lock things down and all that sort of stuff. But what I really want to get across is there's nothing for anybody on this call or in the Insider program or anything like that to go do here. One day we'll flip the switch and this is the UI you'll see. If you go into Insider settings, the Insider program settings, you'll see the new channels choices. And one of these bubbles will be filled in depending on where you're coming from in the existing ring model. And then I've kind of touched on this a little bit, and people in the chat have mentioned it, but you can go to the next slide. But really a big goal of ours for this whole channels thing, or I guess it's more that like as we started digging into how do we solve the problems that we're seeing with the ring structure, Office just has had a pretty good model. Edge also has this sort of channels concept. And it just seemed, we started considering it, and it just seemed like a really good opportunity for us to align to what other Insider programs do across the company. Not just because it solves our problems, but I think it makes it a lot easier for any customer to go in and choose, have a similar story across all these different programs about how their device is enrolled and what expectations they can have for the kind of content they receive from that sort of configuration. There still is this problem, and I do consider it a problem, where insiders need to opt into Insider programs separately. I'm glad to see, I think Amanda actually wrote this, that we're looking to improve this experience over time, so maybe throwing you a little bit under the bus here, but I'm glad to see that was written. But at the very least, even just having this like Venn diagram of like, if you are in the beta channel in Office and the beta channel in Windows, like you can have the same level of expectations. We have the same purpose for those individual channels. If you're out in a preview channel for either of these, similarly, we're trying to tell the same story. And anytime I see alignment across these big sort of slices out of Microsoft, it always warms my heart. I feel good about when we start coming together and stop doing kind of our separate isolated things. And I think it's really good for insiders, for customers to have a consistent story across the different programs as well.
Yeah, and I mean, if you are able to align with a naming convention, right? If you decide to, like, if say for somebody who's only a Windows Insider currently, and they decide that they wanted to join the Office Insider program, right? Using those same naming conventions helps them understand without having to try and decipher, okay, what am I going to expect? And, what's the quality going to look like? right? It gives them that set framework that they can just kind of snap into and not take some of the guesswork out of it.
Yeah. So the last slide is just a slide titled questions. So, I know I've been trying to watch chat and also talk and present that sort of stuff at the same time, and I also see other folks answering questions. But Jason or Amanda, maybe if you want to, Jason, you've been driving the slide, so maybe Amanda or Brandon or somebody.
Yeah. Maybe
there's some top questions you've kind of seen come through or had to answer that we want to review, and then we can take any more. I don't know. It's up to you guys.
So hang on one second. Let me jump out of this presentation mode and back over. I have to do the little audio toggle thing again real quick. So give me just a moment. I do have a bunch of questions that I jotted down along the way. So give me a moment and we will do this. Hang on.
And so while Jason's doing that, I want to thank Josh for joining the webcast today and kind of talking through this. This is a long time coming. Josh and I worked on this together when we were on the fighting team, and now coming over to the insider team, it's kind of this full circle. And I know it's always, it seems kind of simple sometimes, and externally it's like a simple name change. There's a lot of details to go into it in terms of how our targeting service works and how telemetry and feedback are tied into it. So there's a lot involved. I really want to thank Josh for sticking with it as this has come along a long ways as we've been going along through it.
Okay, so the echo thingy is happening just a little bit. It's not horrible. I'm working on it. I told y'all there was going to be the audio thingy. I'm trying my best. Give me a minute. I promise y'all I'm trying. Let's see here. If I can turn that down just a take. I'm working on some of the volume ranges because I think it's what I need to adjust. I really appreciate y'all, bearing with me here. I promise. I get a little bit better at this every time we do it. Audio, speakers, volume range. Okay. Let's switch over to this mixer. Not the mixer we're broadcasting on. The other audio mixer. Okay. I can't say that it's 100% fixed, but we can try.
1, 2, 3. Can you hear me?
There's a little bit. It's almost like there's a delay. But all right. So we're gonna give this a shot. So all right. So questions, right? I'm actually gonna start at the bottom of the list and work back up because some of the earlier questions weren't as specific to channels, but I think they're worth addressing. So here we go. I'm starting at the bottom. I actually took notes. It's kind of funny that I'm actually writing on sticky notes here. And Jen's just going to say, why don't you use the sticky notes app on the computer? I know I should have, but...
I assumed you were using it. You're not using it?
Not when I'm trying to do the audio and the broadcast and navigate PowerPoint. I can only do so much at once. All right, so jumping between channels, right? We highlighted the scenario for dev earlier where there's no hopping off the train point. If you want to, roll off of dev, you will need to grab some ISO media and go that route. There is, I'm reluctant to say this, but there is the, if you pause flighting thing and wait for a year or some unknown amount of time for things to catch up, but that's not what you want to do. There's you leave yourself insecure, you're not getting security patches and things like that. So just don't do that. If you're on dev and you decide to hop off, grab an ISO, do all your media backup, use OneDrive or whatever, other backup method you want, save all your stuff, do your install, and then jump to whatever build you want to be on, whether it's retail or a different channel. So, that being said, what does it look like swapping between, say, beta and the release preview channels?
So dev channel is its own weird beast, right? And going from release preview to beta to dev is also very easy as well, because those things are kind of ahead of each other. Going the other direction, from dev to beta to release preview, is a bit more challenging. So dev to beta, I agree with your recommendation. And ISO, I think if you timed it perfectly, on the day or the week. Maybe you could do a dev to beta swap, but I don't know. Maybe. Like the day we're like, oh, this is so beta to release preview. I think based on how we're going using those, a lot of times that'll work fairly fine, and then there will be times when you may not receive anything for a couple months. Essentially, it's really going to depend on, let's say you are in the beta channel and it's the week where we go, hey, we've taken the next set of features and given it a release name and we're sending new stuff to the beta channel, and you take those builds and then decide that you want to move to the release preview. At that point in time, it's going to be a little while because the release preview doesn't get the next thing until we're kind of ready to preview it in the release preview channel and send it out GA. But it will happen for you automatically. There will just be this delay. Now, if we're at the point where both channels are like we're at the tail end of beta and release preview, we're going to give it new content soon, it'll be a much smaller delay. I think the key thing, though, is that I don't foresee that delay being anywhere near what it was in the past. Like you mentioned earlier, Jason, 7 months of no content is slow. That's just not something we want to do.
Yeah.
Another thing I'll add is there is an engineering counterpart on my team looking at the channel switching, the opting out of the insider program, and like sort of the control you all have on your devices, and trying to figure out if we can solve any of these problems in the next sort of cycles we have for OS development. So file the feedback is actually what I'd really recommend. If you switch channels and you feel like it's a real pain, we're paying a lot of attention to that kind of feedback right now with this change. So make sure you file that, and it'll definitely get to the right people who are keeping an eye on it and help us kind of design a better experience for you.
So real quick, I tried something with the audio. So randomly, Amanda, I'm going to task you to say something. I need to make sure that it's working because I think I finally figured out the echo thingy, which would be amazing if I actually did this. Everybody needs to say so. I just need y'all to talk for a second because I'm like getting giddy that I think I figured it out finally.
Are we gonna be able to go overtime?
Hello.
Yeah, I mean this goes to this is technically scheduled till 11:30.
Till 11:30, right?
Oh.
Yeah.
Crap! I have to move a meeting. Hold on.
So, did it work? There's no more echoes?
Crystal. No echo.
I'm going to get up and do laps around my office. This is amazing.
You just unclick the echo button. Is that what you did?
I'm literally giddy over here. This is ridiculous.
I thought that you were trying to get the audio working with 3 minutes left, and I was like, Jason, let it go.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Oh, I wish I had figured this out for the last webcast.
Quickly share the solution because it's curious in chat.
Okay, so I'm gonna put a screenshot of this on Twitter when I'm done. I swear to you. So here we go. Right, I'm distracting from the conversation, but I'm so excited about it. I have to talk about this. I love figuring technical stuff out. So because of the way we're doing this, right, so that you can see everybody's video out there, right? So I have a webcam on my desk, which is what I'm pointing at right now, which is why you can see me pointing at it. So everybody else is actually dialed in via Skype, and we use the NDI streams to bring their audio and video in. And then I plug all of this stuff in through the XSplit software to create this whole Hollywood Squares grid thing that you see. So this is the technical quirk about it. Because all their audio is coming in and system audio is piping out, right? So I'm getting their audio through Skype. But since XSplit is also pulling in their audio off the NDI streams, there's a secondary audio stream that's kind of piggybacked. But because XSplits gets it a little bit later, right, there's this slight gap, right? They're almost the same, but they're just far enough apart that what you hear is the echo. So this is what I've had to do. When we're in this mode, where you get to see everybody, I have to mute everything that's related to Skype that would normally be coming in through system audio. Right? That way it's only the XSplit audio stream that's getting piped out. That way you only hear everybody one time. You don't get that gap because this stream goes away, so you hear it one time. But when I switch over to presentation mode, right, the way XSplit is set up with the scenes, the audio disappears because in the presentation mode, all the view that you have of everybody on the screen disappears because it's not all backed up. So you lose all the audio off of the NDI stream. So I have to go back into the system settings, re-enable the Skype audio, and let that become the main audio stream that you are then getting at that point. So, all of that said, it works. It's complicated. I told you I was going to be trying some crazy harebrained stuff. But the fact is that it worked. And I know how to do it. Hooray! I'm so
And
excited.
you're going to put it down in OneNote so you never forget.
Or should I use a sticky note, Jen? I'm going to write it down, and I'm gonna promptly recycle this so that I lose the solution. Can I do a diagram for that? So anyway, so now there will only ever be one audio stream. There's no more echoes. Like, I don't know. I'm having a geek moment here. It's so simple, right? But sometimes you have to test in production to figure it out. So that's what we did, and it worked. Okay, so anyway, Josh, thank you for letting me hijack the past comments.
No, I got there's a little bit of feedback of like repeat what I said because I was echoing. The only thing I'll say is if you're moving channels from like beta to release preview and you find out that it sucks for you, file feedback because we're paying a lot of attention to that right now and trying to make something better.
Yep.
But hopefully it doesn't suck. There will probably be a delay before you get some build, but if it sucks, let us know.
Yep.
There, that's my quicker version.
Yep. And again, I know I said this at the beginning of the stream. I will touch on this again. I'm so sorry for the echo. I know the last webcast had a bunch of echo in it. We tried our best to work around it. I'm glad I got it figured out. Hopefully there will never be echo again on any other webcast. The streams have been super stable since we started doing these remotely, right? I love it. But the audio piece was like the new bug thing that we worked through. But anyway, we're good. All right. So back on track here. Thank you for letting me hijack. So the question of ISOs came up several times. Eddie, I think you actually answered this in chat, but I will do this just as one of the questions. Will there be ISOs for each of the channels so that if a user needs to do a recovery or if they get stuck for some reason, things like that? The answer is yes. There is provisioning already done on the ISO page, which if I don't want to type because I don't want to get yelled at for typing too loud. If you go to aka.ms/WIP ISO, WIPISO, it will take you to the page, and there's actually all three. There's still the rings for now, right? So some of the builds are catching up, things like that. But yes, there will continue to be all three, and you will be able to get ISOs for each of them. The cadence at which we release ISOs, this is something I've discussed with Brandon. We've also talked with the folks on the build team who actually do the media publication and we partner with to actually get you the ISOs. We're going to shoot to try to have ISOs delivered once a month. We're tentatively planning, and I say tentatively, but we're tentatively planning for the first Wednesday of each month. We're going to try our best to hold to that. If there is a build that we normally would have grabbed that had a really bad bug in it for some reason, we obviously don't want to publish that as an ISO. So there's always the possibility something, might not go explicitly according to plan, but that's what we're planning on. Am I good, Brandon? Did I tell any fibs here?
No, you did great. I think for dev channel, the ISOs that you just mentioned were, committed to once a month. I think, we had gotten a question about, ISOs for the beta channel like 20H2, and those are on a more fluidic schedule right now. And so, but we will definitely get ISOs out for 20H2 on the beta channel as well.
Is that a word? Fluidic?
If
it is now.
It is now.
Fluidic, agile, wishy-washy, fuzzy. But yeah, and I answered that question in the chat. But yeah, so in addition to what Jason was saying, we are working on ISOs as well.
Awesome. It's funny that you messed with Brandon about that. I used to use the word ergonomical because I thought it was like an adverb form of something, but apparently there is no ergonomical. It doesn't matter. It's just ergonomic no matter how you're using it. So I had to learn that one.
Economical ergonomics.
Yeah. I don't think English as a whole is a bastard language, so you can do whatever you want and it's fine.
Yep.
I was just making fun of Brandon.
Eddie, I'm going to loop you in for this one because I think you answered it in chat. In relation to SCCM, right? System Center Configuration Manager, will each of the channels be available within that platform?
Yes, so they are still going to be available, and I kind of wish Aria was around to really answer this question because she has all the details. But the short answer is yes, they're available, with the caveat of the names are not going to change right away within Config Manager and group policies, and a lot of that just has to do with the release cadence for group policy changes. So if you have something from an SCCM perspective configured for fast ring day, it will still get on the back end the dev channel.
Yeah, and I work with Ariel a lot and can confirm that we've validated that the migration works and everything still goes forward. But you're absolutely right. The changing of the names in the policies, kind of like this. It's in the old way we used to do Windows. I'll put it like that. Whereas like the flight settings, that's a switch I can do from kind of the back end and change the UI. The policies need to be updated in that older fashion, and that's it's not that it's not ready. It's just that it needs to get out to people.
Awesome.
Any other questions?
Yeah. There's a couple more here. So I believe this was Hotcake's question that I made note of earlier. I'm trying to, because I'm going in reverse, so I'm trying to remember who it was that was asking each of these. There was a question about, in relation to the channels, are we going to sort feedback by channel, or is it the same as it is now? So
I answered that in chat.
You did? Okay.
I did. But the answer essentially is that when feedback comes in, it's based on the build, not necessarily on the channel, because there's going to be many times where a build goes to many different channels. And so really we want to know what's wrong with that specific build.
Yeah, so I don't think, but externally, the only current options you have are you can see all up feedback by trending, upvotes, or latest, and then you can filter feedback by the build you are on. Internally, we have a few more toggles for like, show me only the feedback from this specific build, regardless of what build number it is. I think, I mean, we can say, we don't usually look for feedback from a specific ring. That's not usually how we divvy it up, although I guess we could if we wanted to, but for the most part, as Amanda says, it's build.
Yeah. And I mean, that's especially important given, that each one of these channels is going to be on obviously a significantly different set of build numbers, which makes it easier for us internally to kind of filter, be like, hey, I want to look at the past, 3 or 4 builds that have come in for the dev channel. Let's see if there's anything that's trending here, something that popped up and that was quiet and it's kind of built up as we've released more than one build. And then one of the things that's always, and I'm sidetracking it here a little bit, but it's important to note, is just because we release a build, say Wednesday at 10 a.m. to the dev channel, right? There is still what we call an adoption curve, right? And this was something that Amanda covered in the flighting webcast way back in 2017, I think it was. Is that really 3 years ago? Oh my goodness. I'm having a moment here.
I don't know those gray hair back then, I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm.
I blame Josh.
Yeah, this is what insiders are doing to me. All this gray that's showing up in my beard, it's y'all's fault.
I got a lot on my beard. Oh my god, I look like
I'm sitting here pointing at my monitor, but I'm like, yes, Brandon does have gray beard. Oh my goodness. All right, so
one of the things I saw in the chat that was really cool was that people are asking a lot about quests. So it's cool to see that people are looking at that, and if there's more interest for it, we can see what we can do there. And I don't know, something to consider.
I know Nikki has been anytime we announce a new feature in the build, like we've been trying to make sure that there's a quest lined up for it. The only thing is that sometimes when we do the controlled feature rollouts that don't go to everyone immediately, we wait a bit on the quest, specifically targeting that, just because we don't want you to see a quest that's not applicable for your device.
Cool.
But yeah, I'm really glad that you like quests. You like them too.
Okay. Well, sorry. Go ahead, Josh.
I just saw a question that was like so closely related to the SCM thing that I thought I could quickly answer.
Yeah, go for it.
So what was it? Real Donald Duck? Yeah, that was his name. Their name. Asked, are there any changes for Web4Biz for Windows Business Insiders? It's related to that same the policy discussion Eddie was just talking about. There's no changes in terms of like you can still control your devices through policy, and you can still enroll in where you feel is the right place for the insider program and all that sort of stuff. I think that the bigger changes are that I feel like this gives commercial customers and businesses a much clearer picture on where to enroll these devices than we've had in the past. It's super clear, like, okay, when we have a release ready, that's when we're in the beta channel. When we're getting ready to go out to the world, that's when we're in release preview. And we've made some, I've actually done this similar talk with some of our different commercial customers and stuff like that, and it seems very well received. So there'll be more information coming out for kind of the Web4Biz stuff in the future about some of the plans they have around release and things like that. So I'd look to that to be cool information as well.
Awesome. So those were the questions I captured. I'm sure there were more, right? Because as I was flipping back and forth, I know I didn't capture everything. So for those of you that are in the chat, if you asked a question along the way while Josh was going through the presentation that I didn't happen to get addressed, right? I didn't get it jotted down. Please re-ask it real quick. We'd be happy to try and address it. No big deal there.
Jason, one thing I noticed in the chat, someone asked, like, so what are the practical differences besides the name change?
Okay.
The insiders will see. And I think part of it is, like, full disclosure, we've been working on this change for a long time. I think 1.5, 2 years. I don't know. Josh and I, the strategy for this has been going on for a while. So part of that change is names are hard. And getting that stuff locked down is honestly, in some ways, the hardest part. But we've been operating and we've been building toward this plan for a while. So some of the changes you saw last year where we consolidated skip ahead and fast together and changed how we started pushing builds, where we did simultaneous releases of the builds of 19H2 while we were doing 20H1, I think, at the time. So I'm terrible with the actual name, so pardon me if I'm on that. But we've been doing that. We've been kind of building toward it. So the change won't seem significant because we've kind of been getting the waters warm over the past few months of changing operations. And now the names are kind of catching up to some of those changes. But also, like Josh mentioned, if this does put us in a good position where we can potentially grow, depending on how we're changing, how Windows is developing, or frankly, what insiders want. So we have some flexibility there.
Yeah, and I think while name changes are hard, culture changes are even harder.
What was that? Culture, yeah.
Yeah, and so a lot of framing this up and getting this out and stuff has been around changing like the way engineers think about the insider audiences and how we envision using them that's best for the insiders and best for the company, and sort of changing some of that old way, I say old, but 5 years ago, way of doing things. So while the change itself may not seem massive, there's a lot of wheeling and dealing, I guess. A lot of convincing people and making small changes, like Amanda said, right? Like we made small changes here and there, and people started kind of going like, "Oh, I see where you're trying to go now."
And if you think externally people have lots of feedback, you should see what engineers have to say about changes. Making changes internally, it's not an easy thing either. There's a lot of convincing that happens well before we even are able to announce it. There's a lot of meeting with leadership, strategy conversations that goes into some of these things, and we found some good opportunities to change as we go along.
I'm sure I'm going to get myself in trouble for saying this, right? But this is one of those risks that I'm willing to take, right? Because, well, I mean, I know who's going to yell at me. Top center square here. It's like this was stuff we were like. I know, Josh. I don't even know how long you've been working on this. Like, I know, like back into last summer. I know we were talking about this at Ignite, in Orlando last year, and I know we were wanting to, do this release earlier this year. But there was a lot of things that happened, earlier this year, shifts in engineering, shifts in just the global atmosphere of what's happening in the world. But, I on behalf of everybody sitting here, because, we're all related, when working on the Insider program in one form or another, as well as everybody in the audience, as I point to the other screen where I have the chat pulled up. I just want to say thanks for, being diligent and sticking with this, because there was a lot of heart and soul poured into this, a lot of late night conversations, lots of emails, lots of presentations, right? I know how much work you put into this. And I just want to say, like, on behalf of all the insiders, like, it's really appreciated how much time you put into making this happen. And we get a thumbs up. All right.
I wanted to clarify a couple of things I'm seeing in chat. Questions that are maybe I was misspoken, or maybe just as we talked and stuff, things got a little lost in translation. So I saw one question. Does this mean we'll be getting a build each month instead of each week? I think this is maybe when we were talking about the ISO releases. For the dev channel, we still do have a goal of getting a new flight out every week. I think the ISOs Jason was talking about, I think that's when he mentioned that those would probably come out on a monthly schedule.
That is the goal. And again, to reinforce the concepts that we also put in our announcement for channels, is that we're again moving away from the cadence and more onto quality. And so, like, thinking of like when people are going to get bits, like that concept, even though we shoot for like weekly targets for dev channel and whatnot, like we're trying to move away from that with channels. So
yeah, I mean there still is this goal of like everyone in every channel is getting new stuff or getting content frequently, right? And sort of having that quality bar between each channel should let us achieve that. Maybe this is one of the things I will get in trouble for, but like I personally have a goal of every channel gets something weekly. It's just that something is a completely different quality bar than the other channels, right? So that's, even though we're trying to get away from cadence, for me it's more about like making sure that you can subscribe to a quality level, and then we can deliver content at that quality level as fast or as slow as we need to, and keep everything kind of interesting and actually useful for you. One of the other clarifications, someone asked, what should I, let's see, what was it? I'm going to mess up the wording here because I jotted it down. What should I be filing feedback on in the dev channel, if not bugs? And I just wanted to clarify that when we talked about the beta channel being the place where we're trying to sort of stabilize, fit and finish, get ready for release, and really paying a lot of attention to bugs around that kind of stuff, that I'm not trying to minimize in any way the feedback that comes in for the dev channel or release preview. I think for dev, we're going to be, I think just by nature, we're going to be getting a lot more feedback and bugs on kind of like, this stuff doesn't work. I'm trying to do X and the program is crashing, or really kind of like, I think there will be feature kind of feedback that comes in through there, and we will still be looking at that. We will still be using the data and the crash logs and the feedback as part of it. Same with the release preview channel. I think that for the beta channel, what I'm trying to say is we are trying to get ready to like sign off and release this thing, and that's kind of like it's like a big momentum driver at the company, and so we'll really be hyper aware of sort of feature level bugs at that point and the feedback that's coming in at that level.
But I think too, I mean, like, it doesn't matter what channel, or even if you're on release or on retail builds, anyone can log a feature request. I think you just meant in terms of like the quality of the things that we're shipping, right?
Yeah. And then I think there was one more.
So there was a question that I wanted to ask. That
Yeah,
I
go
wanted
ahead.
to repeat that somebody had popped up with. Let me find it. Sorry. Oh, it was from Renee Becker. Could you go into more detail about the quality guidelines you set for yourself? I won't sit here and review the specifications individually, right? But I will say that documented internally, we actually have a full set of guidelines of what quality looks like for each of, well, legacy rings moving forward to channels. And there were some updates made, as part of this shift for the different areas of the product. So what deployment looks like when we're pushing a build out, for what stack looks like. So, does Wi-Fi work? Are you able to connect to the internet? Does it hold the connection reliably? Things for Bluetooth, things in the Windows desktop experience and shell, things like that. Does start launch? Does it launch reliably? Yeah, exactly. Right. Jen could probably.
We have accessibility stuff too. Like, does narrator work?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can our non-sighted insiders use the PC?
Yep, absolutely. So it's not something that we've published externally, and I doubt that we ever will. But there are very clear guidelines that we hold ourselves accountable to, and we have measures set up that we look at to say, okay, based upon the installs that were done internally, the feedback that we've received, looking at the data against these measures, are we at quality? Yes or no? And it drives the decisions that we make for holding a build back, promoting it between rings. Do we release it externally? It's gotten better and more refined as we've come along through the years. But this is something that even back in the very early days, back in 2014, when we were putting out the very first builds, there were measures that we looked at. And the beautiful thing of it is that we do a lot less arguing now. There used to be some pretty good knockdown, drag out type, hey, I don't want to ship with this bug and things like that. And there was always the thing of, well, I need to get my feature out. Your bug's holding me back, things like that. And teams still hold each other accountable to this day. So if there's one bad bug that a team has unfortunately, checked in and it shows up, and it holds up a flight, right? We don't make the team wear like the cone of shame that you would see on a dog, right? There's no special badge we give them, right? But teams hold each other accountable to making sure that we're collectively working towards providing these updates out, that we're not holding each one team isn't holding another team back. And yes, like I mentioned before, it is documented, and there are things that we hold ourselves accountable to when releasing. But we won't publish that externally. It's not necessary. Josh, I think there was something that you had read that you wanted to comment on. Maybe not.
I think the only other question I've seen a bunch of times is ISOs for ARM. Will we have them?
Yeah, I did tackle that one in chat. We've got a lot of requests for it. I think there's been 3 different people in here asking for it. I know Tourniquet asked for it. I know Sinclair Nader definitely wants them. He's like the super ARM fan. As I kind of have him mentally tagged in my head. We know that there's the request for it. It's not something we do currently, but it is on the things that we know insiders have asked for, and we haven't forgotten about it. I'll leave it at that.
I mean, are there ISO though? I mean, I thought it was a different sort of format.
Yeah, it's not. It doesn't function the same. So
I know.
I'm just, just
It's
like,
softball.
yeah. Thanks. Thanks, boss. Appreciate that. Anything else? Like I'm double checking my list here. Nope. That's actual stuff I have to
Most
do.
of the things I see are things that I don't think we can get into.
So do check those. I do want to say this. Oh, go ahead.
I saw a question about like I'm not. It's a conglomeration of questions like about 10x and would.
So never mind.
What? Is that yours?
No. I was gonna say we can't get into that stuff.
No, I'm not getting into 10x itself. My point is though. Wow, I forgot everyone's still have one for 10x. Like, I just want to say, like, let's go back to when we had when we flighted desktop desktop and phone at the same time. It used the same kind of structure in terms of rings. Our flighting systems are able to distinguish between different sort of device types, and so regardless of what it is, like there wouldn't be anything like a 10x channel. You know what I mean? Like we're going to keep the same consistency no matter what we would do in terms of different sort of device types or OSs. It would remain the same sort of channel structure.
Yeah.
But this is not me saying there's going to be a 10x inside your program.
Right. Yeah, but I will say there are other devices today they're public. They've been out for a long time. They use the rings today. Those will be moved over to channels. So it's exactly what you're saying. Like the system doesn't care what. I'm not gonna say it doesn't care. It knows, but we try to have the same ring structure across all the things we support for flighting and for the Insider program. And switching everything to channels, we would plan on doing the same for anything any device type we support.
Cool. I do want to say again, because I know the questions have started popping back up, and there was a few people that asked along the way, and I wanted to wait to the end to address this question again. Of course, the question being, where are we going, right? With the Mixer platform coming to a close next month, what will we do with the Insider webcasts? As I said at the beginning, I'll just kind of repeat myself for those who have joined later. There's no desire to end the webcast series. Obviously, we have some changes to make, namely deciding where we're going to host these moving forward. There are several options on the table. Earlier this year, Teams wouldn't have been a platform that would have met what we were looking for between, user constraints and the way some of the functions work. A lot has changed with Teams, so I have some homework to do to see if that's the right platform for us to move to. Of course, we've gotten feedback, yes and no, that some folks want us to move to the Facebook gaming platform. Some folks prefer not to because they don't have Facebook accounts and they're afraid they won't be able to see the webcast. We are actively listening to all the feedback that's coming in. Of course, we got requests to move to Twitch. We've got requests to move to YouTube. There's a ton of options out there. We will actively review these while we will, no options, just Teams. While we are doing this, right, we may not do a July webcast, right? I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but I will keep everyone actively posted, both between the answers forum as well as on Twitter. We'll let you know how that turns out. But we will get this sorted out, and once we have something finalized, we will absolutely put it in Windows Insider newsletter. So if you get those emails, which everybody hopefully does, do make sure to check them out. There's a new one that's actually supposed to be showing up in the next day or two, I believe it is. So it won't be in there, but the one that comes out in July should hopefully have the details that you'll be looking for. We'll make a special section in there and include this information because we know that it's super important to get the word out. But I will just simply say, thanks for joining us on this platform for the time that we've been doing this, right? As Rich, who mentioned earlier at the beginning of the stream, right? The computer that we built to do the webcast while we were in the office was lovingly nicknamed the Beam Machine because that's what we were doing the webcasts from. And then, Microsoft bought Beam and changed the name to Mixer. And, we've been using this platform the entire time. So, we've got a lot of history here. We're gonna miss it. We appreciate everybody who's helped us along the way from the Mixer team to get us set up and rolling. But there's something next. We will figure out where we are rehoming to, and then we'll pick back up and get rolling. So anyway, there's more to come. We'll keep you posted when we know stuff. So I'll stop talking. I know we gotta wrap up here because we are at the bottom of the hour. Amanda, any parting words?
No, I was going to ask another question, but I'll wait.
Jen?
I was gonna put Josh on the spot. So this is a question about dark mode. I know, like, Josh loves his dark mode. Are we gonna put the settings dialogue for insiders?
When Jason told me we were doing this on Skype, the first thing I did was put it in dark mode.
No, I think just in terms of the parting thing, right? Like, I know this is like a new channel, this is a new thing. We're gonna, anytime you kind of release something new, there might be a couple of bumps along the way, but a lot of people are really involved in the end-to-end for this change. We really think it'll help provide the clarity of some of these kind of wacky things we've been doing in the background for a while. And really our goal is to make sure that we can have more insiders come join our program and have, a larger diversity of people looking at these bills and providing feedback. And I definitely hear folks in terms of saying, hey, make sure feedback's a priority. It is a priority for us. We'll make sure that we talk a lot more in depth about some of the things that we do internally in terms of processing some of those and tooling improvements as well. But by all means, please hit us up on Twitter, and we'll continue to answer any questions you guys might have about the process. Thank you.
Jen, Brandon, Eddie, Josh, any words of wisdom as we exit?
No.
Nope.
Okay.
Stay safe.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Keep following feedback.
yeah, definitely. So with that, we are going to wrap up. Thank you to all the insiders who have joined us along for this stream. We really appreciate you being here and making the time to come and hang out with us. There's definitely more to come. And I will do one last pitch. If you didn't catch this month's podcast, which is the pre-recorded thing that we release each month, go to aka.ms/WIP podcast, WIP podcast, and check out that episode. Eddie is on there, and the Feedback Hub team's on there. There's a whole lot of goodness. Anyway, and then we've got some really cool stuff coming up for you next month as well. So anyway, with that, we wrap. Cheers to Mixer. Thank you for hosting us the past many years. Thank you to all the insiders for tuning in. You're great, and we will figure out where we're going, and we will catch you next time. Bye, everybody.
See you guys later.
Bye.